Hello, fans, and welcome to another action packed, exciting hour of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Re-Watch-Along Project. This is podcasting the way it used to be and the way you like it. This show is a production of the Something Else Podcasting Network, and it is episode number 072 of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from June 12th, 1993, to May 17th, 1993, at the Kaywood High School Gym in Harlan, Kentucky. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the Trick Williams to my Joe Hendry. It's Trae. Trae, how you doing?
Well, you just made me a cool black guy, so I'm excited about that. Never
Yeah.
been that.
See, I didn't call
Never
you Tim
been,
Horner for once.
uh, never been cool or a black guy. Tim Horner's like the opposite of a cool black guy.
It is he's the only thing he could have been otherwise is if he was a woman. Like that's the only way he could have been more of the opposite of a cool black guy.
Yeah, he wasn't exactly cool or smart this week, was he?
No, and I was almost ready to cuss you out because you told me earlier in the day that there's going to be a 3-star match on the show, and then I turn on the show and they announced that Tim Horner is on Down and Dirty. I'm like, motherfucking Trey, you think you could have warned me about that?
There was a 3-star match on the show, though.
I disagree. We'll get to that. When
Really?
we get to the main
Okay.
event. Yes, I do not believe that was a 3-star match, and I'll tell you why when we get to it.
I might have been in a good mood. I don't know.
Well, in case this is the first time you've ever listened to the show, first of all, what the hell is wrong with you? But secondly, what we do here, it is really quite simple. We watch every single episode of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, beginning with episode 1 on February 1st, 1992, and we go all the way to episode number 200 on November 26th, 1995. We talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, the so-so, the all right, the amazing, the tremendous, the out of this world, the unbelievable, the unforgettable, the unremarkable, the one of a kind, the stuff you'll remember forever, the stuff you've already forgotten, and everything in between. We watch some matches, listen to some promos, and talk about some angles, and just have fun talking about old school wrestling for about an hour. And then at the end of the show, I tell you what else has happened in the world of wrestling, because I can tell you June 12th, 1993 until I'm blue in the face, but this gives you some context where you may go, oh, I remember that. Is that what was going on? And Trey, for the first time in a month, I managed to do the entire intro of both of our shows this week without fucking it up once.
Well, you're one up on Bob Caudle, who fucked up the introduction to the show this week. Did you
Yes,
notice? Did you catch it?
we'll get to it here in a second here. Um, by the way, there might be a few weeks coming up soon where this podcast is longer than an episode of Monday Night Raw.
Oh, oh yeah. I just saw
Because
the yeah, they're cutting it to 2 hours for till the end of
yeah,
the year.
yeah,
I
for
hope they
for
keep
three.
it that way.
Sadly, the news on the street is they're going to be back to 3 hours in January.
Sorry to hear that.
As am I. Literally, the only thing good that came out of 3 hour Raws was the commercial they did. I think USA produced it, but they did a commercial where Vince told John Cena to tell everybody that Raw moved to 3 hours. And it was one of those things where like it gets miscommunicated because Cena tells two people and they tell two people, and it all gets all screwed up. And CM Punk ends up in Kuwait, and it's a tremendous commercial. Um, but
You remember they would do like a couple of 3 hour Raws a year, and
yes,
like back then it was kind of a treat, and then it became such a fucking chore when it was every week.
yep, that's when I stopped watching Raw every week, actually. And I lasted a little bit longer than I think a lot of people did. But, around 2015, 2016 is when I stopped watching every single week.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. It was maybe 2011, 2012-ish. I
Mhm.
don't know. That was the nadir of my wrestling fandom. Coincidentally, was the one period in my life where things were going well and I was pretty happy. So that's interesting. I don't know what that says about me.
So, did you hear about who's number one in the PWI 500?
They emailed me the cover. It's Cody, isn't it?
Yes. Who is they? How did
Oh, there's one some like what's it called? Substack. There's like a PWI weekly Substack that I
Interesting.
get every week, and they so I get emails from them, and they had the cover of the magazine.
So yes, Cody is number one. The top 10, in case you care. One, Cody. Two, Swerve Strickland. Three, Will Ospreay. Four, Seth Franklin Rollins. Five, Tetsuya Naito. Six, Damian Priest. Seven, MJF. Eight, John Moxley. Nine, Der Ring General. And 10, Mystico.
That's a pretty decent top 10, I think.
I'm not sure if I would replace one, who I would replace. Um, yeah, because I mean, you, with the exception of Roman, and I imagine, Roman may not have wrestled enough to qualify for the list or some shit. But except for Roman, I'm not sure who else you could put in there. Like 11 was Joe, 12 is Sami Zayn, 13 is Drew, 14 is Danielson, 15 is the first TNA entrant, Moose.
He was world champion for most of the time. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it it's funny because like it generally is supposed to be a shoot, PWI is like, hey, it's your win-loss record and all that shit. Sonata
Who is I'm sorry, you Sonata. I was about to ask who is the next New Japan guy.
Sonata was 16.
That makes sense.
Vikingo was 18. I mean, I don't know if you want to count him, but Mustafa Ali was 19.
Oh, that's
Yes.
pretty good for him.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I think it had to be Cody. Cody had to be number one. Osprey, I'm gonna take that as half a New Japan guy because he was a New Japan guy for about half the year. So that between what he was doing in New Japan and what he's done in AEW, he's just you can't really find fault with that. Naito, that's sort of he won the G1, he won the title twice. Yeah, I don't know. If if you put stock in such things, and honestly, the less stock you put in them, the more happier you'll be. But as far as that list and how far I value it, I think it's a decent enough list.
Matt Riddle was 16. I don't know. This was 2019. I don't know why it's in my feed, but in 2019, Matt Riddle was 69.
Nice.
Yes. I can't find yet who number 500 is. I mean, I'm sure I could just, look it up, but I'm just going through Twitter right now. Uh, Anakin Murphy, whomever that is 497. So good for him.
Good for him.
Yes. Um, so by the way, instead of talking about the PWI 500 at this point, because hey, oh, here we go. Who's number 500 is memes, whoever the fuck that is. And he is dressed like Blue Cane. I want you to picture what Blue Cane would look like, and that's exactly what he looks like.
Is it Blue Cane? Because they had like I heard about Blue Cane and then they had to change the name to something.
Yes,
Is that just Blue Cane?
yes. It's memes, aka Blue Pain, aka Blue Cane. Social media sensation, gained a lot of buzz this year, but also a lot of wins. Held multiple championships in his native UK, bested Charles Crowley in a buried alive match, which I bet was what made him number 500. Became the obsession and briefly arch nemesis of Matt Cardona.
Oh, long-term storytelling.
I just realized why you would say that.
Just remembered that Kane murdered Zack
Zack
Ryder
Ryder.
like 15 years ago.
Indeed. But it's like the world is so weird just because it's like, do you remember like did you remember the story of Ahmed Johnson trying to use his PWI 500 rating in like 1995 to get a raise out of Vince?
You remember like 2 years ago when Jonathan Gresham was like yelling at Tony Khan backstage about his PWI 500 ranking?
I've managed to block that out of my mind, mostly because that Jonathan Gresham era was just so weird.
That's funny.
So before we dive into Smoky Mountain, I want to play the promo of the week this week. And this is the one-time deal. Trae and I were just talking about this, and so I decided to pull it up and play it on this very show. Let's go to TNA Impact, August 14th, 2008.
What can I say, JB? A man I've looked up to my whole career chose me to make an example out of. I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong about you, Sting. You're no different than Kurt Angle. I don't know who dropped you on your head, but if you think you're going to make an example out of AJ Styles, you're dead wrong. And then we got Kurt. What's he? He's got this gold medal challenge. He wants another shot at me? I'll be ready. But know this, Kurt. Whoa. Did you just hear that? Let me tell you what I just heard. That word guarantee. I guarantee tonight, Kurt, that gold medal of yours will be coming home with me tonight. Yeah, Michael Phelps, he's not the only one scoring gold in 2008.
It's my turn.
All right. So, yes, the famous promo where AJ Styles refers to Sting as Stink. And yes, we acknowledge that it's just AJ's accent.
So that was.
Mhm.
So you remember that on the Brian and Vinny show, on those legendarily like reviews of the legendarily bad impacts, that they had the whole thing about this, and then somebody back when they did songs, but back when we
Yep.
were a proper country, they made the "Stink Your Rock" to the tune of Jingle Bell Rock.
Yes.
That is one of like the handful of wrestling things over the past like 15 years we've been together that my wife will occasionally reference. Stink Your Ronk.
Stink was wrong. Stink was wrong. Stink was wrong. I remember
Stink was wrong.
the first time I heard that, I lost my ever-loving mind. And now we're gonna watch something that is better than TNA Impact, but was not as good as Stink was wrong.
No, few things are.
Yes. All right, let's go to the intro here with Bob Caudle and Dutch Mantel.
Welcome to another action-packed hour of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Professional wrestling the way you like it and the way it used to be, fans. Hi, I'm Bob Caudle along with Dirty Dutch Mantel, Dr. Dutch Mantel, and if we got an exciting hour for all you wrestling fans this week, don't go away. You're going to love the program we got in store for you this week. We're going to find out who the mystery team of Jim Cornette's was and then exactly what they did to the Rock and Roll Express. Also our main event, what an explosive one that's going to be. The Heavenly Bodies against the Armstrongs, Dutch. What about that for a main event?
Very good main event, but I got some big news today on Down and Dirty with Dutch. We heard what Tammy Fitz said last week to Robbie Eagle. My special guest this week on Down and Dirty with Dutch will be Tammy Fitz, Robbie Eagle, and Tim Horner. It should be good, so stay tuned.
That's going to be something. All right, what about our Beat the TV Champ match?
You know, I'm getting pretty good at this, Bob, drawing names out of a hat. To meet Brian Lee today for $1,000, I won't get that, and I'll get this one here.
All
Let me
right,
see.
go ahead.
The name is
Paul Lee.
Paul Lee. We'll meet Brian Lee today. The Lee boys for a $1,000 Beat the Champ match today on Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
All right, we're about ready for action now, fans. So right now, let's go to the ring.
Wrestling the way you like it and the way it used to be.
I was hoping you'd do the
intro backwards.
podcast line. Yeah, did you even hit the line this week? I didn't catch it.
I did, but I said it correctly. I'm sorry.
Aw. lost opportunity.
It's funny because like I didn't even notice it. So when I watched it the first time, if I would have noticed it, I definitely would have referenced it. But yeah, I noticed the crowd is a lot less excited for hour number 3. This is their third taping that they've done because this was a pretty hot crowd the last 2 weeks. But they are not dead, but they are a lot less enthused.
It's after bedtime in Harlan, Kentucky.
It's possible that Brian Matthews told them that Tim Horner was going to cut a live promo before they started taping. They're like, "Oh fuck, what did we do to deserve this?"
Maybe that's what I need to do for my my sleep noises, because I sleep better when I have some kind of audio that's like it's pleasant to listen to, but it's not so interesting that it's good. Well, I was gonna say I could use Tim Horner promos, but that wouldn't be pleasant to listen to. They would be uninteresting enough, like they wouldn't keep me awake.
I mean, they're interesting in the sense that it's interesting to listen to bad promos.
That's true. That's true.
All right. So our first match is WWA Heavyweight Champion of the World Chris Candido versus Bobby Blaze, and what I'm assuming is a non-title match here. You know, this they do say that the WWA Heavyweight title is an unsanctioned title here in Smoky Mountain, which I'm led to believe means that every match has to be a no disqualification, falls count anywhere street fight
In a cage with cinder
Yes.
blocks.
Oh yeah. Hey, does this mean that Hook is going to wrestle Hangman for the FTW title now?
You know, you would think he would have to be the top contender, but I guess Hook's probably gonna wrestle Roderick Strong first.
But what did Roderick do to earn a title match?
He tapped out to Hook, but his foot was under the ropes, and
But
somehow that entitles him to a title shot.
but even if he didn't, like Roderick Strong didn't win a no disqualification match. Wouldn't that be the way that you would qualify for a shot at the no disqualification title? It's like the pure title in Ring of Honor. Why aren't there pure matches otherwise on the show where the winners get pure title matches?
There are.
Oh, okay. Why aren't Okada's opponents determined in matches with no interference and some vague threat about what happens if you have interference?
I had that thought too. I think when they did those contender matches on Collision, I think maybe there was some kind of fuckery or nonsense that made me have that thought.
Uh,
Why
so
isn't every TNT championship match on TNT?
I've been saying that for years. The TNT title's never defended on TNT, and the TBS title's never defended on TBS.
Well, the
But
TBS title does get defended on TBS.
shush. So Candido wasn't happy that he wasn't introduced as the WWA Heavyweight Champion of the world and stumbled over his words like he was Tim Horner or me doing the intro of the show most weeks. Blaze is coming off his first ever win last week. So Dutch talked about how you remember your first win, and he noted that he lost his first 2 matches of his career, but has since won every other match he's ever had.
He did a lot better than Junkyard Dog.
Indeed.
Didn't say Dog lost like 70 in a row or something?
Something like that. Candido is such a character. Like, I noted really when he was selling just how like vocal he is. And I'm like, it is absurd that he didn't become a bigger star, especially in the WWF. And then, of course, as soon as I say that, I realize the reason why he didn't become a bigger star in the WWF was because he wasn't bigger. And that is one of the dumbest fucking things ever. Trae, when you were a kid and you were watching the Attitude Era, did you give a fuck if Steve Austin was 6'2" and 250 pounds?
No. In fact, he was kind of like on the lower end of the top guys because he was like fucking The Rock and Kane and Undertaker. You know, Rock's 6'5", those guys are 6'10" or whatever. like comparatively 6'2" isn't all that big. But
Like if Stone Cold Steve Austin was the size of Chris Candido, would you have went this shit sucks and turn off the show?
No. And the first time I ever saw Chris Candido, I'm like, wow, he's fucking good.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I don't care about the size thing as long as it's not an issue of size. It's an issue of can you work in a way that makes the size thing believable. Okay, I don't want. I have not been the hugest fan of Riho, and it's not because she's bad. It's because so many people do not know how to work with her in a way that doesn't upset my brain. But then, like, when she's working with someone who works like they are working with someone much smaller than them and sell like that, like, it's really fucking good. So it's not an issue of size, it's an issue of knowing how to work. Imagine that.
She's tiny, just so adorable.
But she looks like her shit looks like it wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight.
Busting a grape in a fruit fight, you said.
You just killed the show dead. You don't
Wow.
recognize that lyrical brilliance from the poet Jay-Z?
I do not. No.
You know the type, loud as a motorbike, but couldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight?
I do not know that one. No. Sorry.
It's a great line.
Um,
First time I've ever managed to get it out in a public forum, so I'm very proud of myself.
This is a fine opener. Candido wins by reversing a cradle into his own cradle and getting 2 hands full of tights.
This was good. All right. They only went like 3.5 minutes, but this was good for the time they got. And I know Candido's a hell of a wrestler, but Bobby Blaze looked good enough in this match that I do not believe this was just a carry job. I may be proven wrong in the coming weeks and months, but as of now, I am in the Bobby Blaze as a good wrestler camp.
Yeah, Mr. Smedley is a good worker.
And yeah, Candido reversed the reverse cradle and went with a handful of tights. And then they made sure to show a replay where the camera was zoomed in right on Bobby Blaze's butt crack.
See, I was going to bring that up later because they do it during the Candido promo. But yes, not only do they zoom in on Bobby Blaze's ass crack, we get a freeze frame for like 10 seconds of just Bobby Blaze's ass crack.
In the midst of this terrific little promo.
Yes. Let's go right now to Bob Caudle and the WWA Heavyweight Champion of the World. What the hell's his nickname? Suicide Blonde.
The Suicide Blonde. When he doesn't
Candido.
just call himself Suicide.
Yes.
Chris Candido right now.
On the camera. Instead of bad camera work. Hey, by the way, still you say the world WWA.
Still world champion. Still heavyweight champion of the world, Bob Caudle. I don't know what that camera showed. It's bad, cheap camera work here in the South. I didn't cheat. I'm the world champion.
All right, and I tell you about the competition here in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, awfully tough. You got some big, rough, tough customers that you're going to be facing in coming weeks and in coming nights. You got to be ready every single night you get into the ring in Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Bob Caudle, I'm ready. There's no doubt about it, I'm ready. Smoky Mountain Wrestling, you better be ready for the world champion, because I'm here taking on all comers. I don't appreciate the fact that you said I cheated, Bob Caudle. I don't appreciate that. That's bad camera work. I don't cheat. I don't cheat. I'm the world champion. I'm from New Jersey, for Christ's sake. I don't cheat.
I tell you, I think we can get another look at that. You
What?
look at it,
No.
too. All right, watch it. Watch it.
What are you
right
talking
there.
about?
There it is. The whole world is
That's-
looking. Everybody sees that you cheated.
It's not my fault if he wears tights that don't fit. I didn't cheat, Bob Caudle. I
All
don't
right.
cheat.
Fans, we'll be back right after this.
Oh, Lord. Poor Bobby Blaze.
Candido is quickly becoming a great shithead Yankee heel for Southern Territory.
By the way, I did go back and count. That freeze frame of Bobby Blaze's ass crack was 11 seconds long.
Quality television.
Yes. Candido is fucking great, and it's like it's gonna we're getting some good shit here on TV, that's for sure. And yeah, we're losing. Like we said, we lost a lot of star power since January. Pretty much since Trae started doing the show, all the stars in the company left. But you know, coincidence? I think not. But
No, that was out of spite for me.
yeah, we'll get later on to Jim Cornette booking things out of spite. But yes, Candido was just fucking awesome there, and you know, I, I love it, and it's like it's sad that his life and his career turned out the way it did, but it makes you appreciate the times that you have with him.
Yeah, Chris Candido was so fucking good. Just like one of the it again, like I talked about with Cesaro the other day. Like Candido is like universally sort of acknowledged, especially by his peers. Everybody in the business and like any kind of smart fans know Candido is really fucking good, and yet he is still underrated.
It's tremendous how you can be that appreciated and that underrated.
Yeah.
So
That'd
then
be really fucking good for that.
We get a recap of last week's primetime Brian Lee Dirty White Boy beat the champ TV title match, where White Boy won the belt, and then Tracy Smothers came out and made the referee reverse the decision.
I'm sorry. White Boy won the what?
What did I say?
The belt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Technically, there's no belt. White Boy won the championship.
The envelope.
However, he got screwed out of the check that was inside. And you would think
what if the TV championship was just Mr. Ron Wright's heart medication?
Oh God. Poor Mr. Wright.
It's been a few weeks since we had a what if the TV championship was X, so I had to throw one in there.
Let's go to Dirty White Boy, who isn't as upset as you think he'd be after getting screwed out of the Beat the Champ title heart medication last week.
All right, fans, here's the Dirty White Boy and the legendary Mr. Ron Wright. I tell you, all week long, I've been hearing how you two say you were cheated out of $1,000.
I've got two men that's done agreed. They're going to collect that bounty right here on TV today, Mr. Carter. I ain't never been so happy. I've had to take a triple dose of my heart medicine just to keep my heart from beating completely out of my chest.
In other words, Brian Lee's going to lose his head today, right?
Let me tell you something. There's going to be a whole lot of stuff going on here today, brother, that you just don't understand or you see it coming up. The bounty will be collected here today. I've got two people in the background that's going to come out and collect it. And it's untelling who's liable to lose their head today.
All right, Ron Wright's got his $20,000 ready, right?
$20,000, the best money's ever been spent in our entire life. Today, you're going to see it today. Tracy Smothers gets eliminated. No more. And that means I just waltz around with that big, pretty belt around my waist.
Tell them people to keep the cameras on, and they may see me walk on water before we get out of here today.
Oh, boy, two happy guys right here now. Mr. Ron Wright and the Dirty White Boy.
So, this is not Bob Cottle's best episode ever. It's like, he's just... and you heard it. Like, they're like, oh, Brian, he's going to knock primetime Brian Lee's head off. Like, no, they're not going to knock off Brian Lee's head. They're going to knock off Tracy Smothers' head.
I'm just glad that the Dirty White Boy and Mr. Ron Wright managed to be in a good mood after they got fucked last week.
I know. I mean, I don't know how Mr. Ron Wright is affording his heart medication, since they didn't win the $1,000 last week.
I mean, presumably, Dirty White Boy gets paid something for wrestling in the main events of all these house shows.
Hopefully. Hopefully he gets the winner's share of the purse, too, even though he tends to lose more often than he wins.
I think he gets disqualified a lot.
Well, up next, was a rematch 49 weeks in the making. Beat the champ TV title holder Primetime Brian Lee versus Paul Lee, a rematch from episode number 23. Primetime Brian Lee wins with the cancellation in 2 minutes, just like episode number 23.
To be fair, it was closer to a minute and a half.
I'm sorry, I rounded it off.
I felt bad for poor Paul Lee. Finally gets a chance and gets canceled.
Yep. Poor Paul Lee.
And not the worst beating he's going to take on this show.
No. Like, I think Mr. Ron Wright mustn't have been taking the right medication. Because
he was taking something. He found somebody growing some stuff on their back 40 somewhere there in East Tennessee.
Now, it is important to note that this was Primetime Brian Lee's 4th title defense. So next week will be his 5th title defense and his shot at $5,000 and to retire as champion. And this, keep in mind, we've still yet to see somebody hold the belt for all 5 weeks. Because we had Tracy Smothers hold it for 4 weeks. And then Killer Kyle held it for like 2 weeks. Then Bobby Eaton held it. No, somebody. Who beat Killer Kyle? Was it Tim Horner? Somebody beat Killer Kyle.
So it was Tracy Smothers. Tracy Smothers lost to the Night Stalker. Night Stalker lost to Tim Horner.
Why do I keep thinking Killer Kyle was the TV champion?
I don't, just the disrespect to Adam Bomb.
I have completely wiped Night Stalker off of the Smoky Mountain registry here. But yeah, Night Stalker then lost about the Tim Horner after 2 weeks, and Horner lost about the Bob Eaton after a couple weeks, and then Eaton lost it after 5 weeks. And here we go now. Can Brian Lee be the first person to have 5 straight weeks as champion?
I mean, something disastrous would have to happen for him not to, I would think.
I mean, maybe he, you never notice by sheer dumb luck, usually the first couple of people they wrestle are jobbers. Like, what a coincidence.
Very, very coincidental.
So let's go to Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies, who are going to cut a promo about how old Bullet Bob Armstrong is.
All right, fans, right now, Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies right here. You guys ought to be on cloud 9. The Armstrongs are coming up in just a few minutes.
That's exactly right. Today on television, we're going to finish the Armstrongs off. You know, I sat down, I was watching CNN. They had a real interesting report. It was kind of like a documentary. Went to Egypt. These guys went to Egypt. They had this big expedition. And they took these steam shovels. And they took this search equipment. And they took all these native bearers to carry stuff around. And they dug. And they probed. And they prodded. And they unlocked, finally, an ancient pharaoh's tomb. And inside that tomb was a sarcophagus. And inside that sarcophagus, when they flopped the seal off of it and lifted that lid, do you know what they found? Bob Armstrong's birth certificate. Let me tell you something, Bullet. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. You ain't never coming back. And after today, Daddy's little boys are going to tuck their tail between their legs, and they're going to run right back after their stinking old man who's probably at home drunk on some cheap Thunderbird because he knows he can't handle Jim Cornette, right, Tom?
You know something, Jim? I'm looking out here at all these females, and I look at and I see the lust in their eyes. Every one of them would love to run their fingers through our hair. Every one of them gets excited, just like the Armstrongs' girlfriends. Every female's desire has become the Heavenly Bodies, and my cousin, the Gigolo, is the man that can not only satisfy, but he can rectify any situation with anybody's girlfriend.
You know, Armstrongs, you could get a lot more done if you would keep them girls from calling my cousin and I constantly.
Hey,
Don't go away.
Hey,
It's
the
gonna
only
be a wild
bad
one.
thing is, you know who else is calling him? Bob Armstrong's old lady. She's 104, one of those big corn-fed farm women, and she's calling the heavenly bodies, man.
All right, fans, it's going to be wild. We'll be back.
It's amazing because this is not like, a legendary Jim Cornette promo or anything. I mean, it's a fine promo for what it is on this show. And it's like, it's just great. It's like Cornette's like, he does the long wind up to the bad joke about finding, Bob Armstrong's birth certificate in a sarcophagus. And, it's a bad joke. And not only does he laugh, but so do the heavenly bodies. And what makes a bad joke funny? When people laugh their asses off at it. Because, they're heels and they're laughing at the bad joke. Yeah. Then, they talk about Bob's wife calling Jimmy Del Rey for some late night coitus. And of course, not mentioned and not needed to be mentioned. Who is Bob's wife? But Scott and Steve's mom. So
Really?
Yeah, I know you'd be shocked to hear that. But,
write this down.
Yes. Right next to how good Will Ospreay is at wrestling.
Yeah. So I got a little scared because Cornette started talking about Egypt, and I thought he was about to segue into bringing in Prince Karis. I don't know when that happens, but I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen eventually.
Oh, that's still to come. That is still to come.
I remain enamored with just what a fantastic scumbag Jimmy Del Rey is. Like, he doesn't even have to say anything. His body language just conveys fucking scumbag. It's beautiful.
It is sad that this is not the Jimmy Del Rey who's in the WWF in a few months.
He should have been fucking feuding with Brett for the belt.
I don't know if I would have done that, but he definitely deserved more than he got. Let's say that.
Actually, Brett probably would have had a hell of a match with Jimmy Del Rey.
Oh, I'm sure of it. Like, there was, and I was probably Tom Pritchard, but there was a Raw in '94 where Brett wrestled one of the Heavenly Bodies. But like I said, it's probably Pritchard. But yeah, like, shockingly, Bret Hart was very good at professional wrestling. You might want to write that down. And
we're just dropping revelations left and right.
That's why people listen to this show. For
listen to the show.
I'm shocked when I see it too.
February 21st, 1994 Raw, Bret Hart and Dr. Tom Pritchard.
Nice. By the way, the reason why I stopped watching the local promos is because these shows are, as much as we love them, these shows are poorly edited where they will spoil surprises later in the show during the local promos. And so that's why I stopped watching them. And so then I started watching them because Trae over here is telling me how great the local promos are. And sure enough, the local promo spoiled Jim Cornette's mystery team. Now, of course, I know who Jim Cornette's mystery team was. We hinted at it for weeks. But still, if you're not us and you're just watching the show and suddenly Brian Matthews is talking about the fucking Bruise Brothers, you'd be like, wait, who?
They kind of suckered you in this week because the local promos, and I vaguely remember seeing Brian Matthews for just a minute, but then it just cuts to like Bob Caudle there in front of the record logo doing an interview with the Armstrong brothers, and it took me a couple of minutes to realize, like, oh, they're plugging Pikeville. This is the local promo.
Yes, for the King of Kentucky tournament.
King of Kentucky.
I don't know if I'd like to brag about being the King of Kentucky. In fact, I know I wouldn't want to brag about being the King of Kentucky. I think I would flat out, forfeit my first round match.
I would enter that tournament if the prize was a crown woven out of Kentucky bluegrass.
I don't think they could afford such a crown here in
That's
1996.
probably all they could afford.
So since Brian Matthews and the local promo people went ahead and spoiled, who the mystery team was, they then decided, hey, let's air the segment now. And we go to Hazard, Kentucky for a one-camera shoot. Where was it?
Paintsville, Kentucky.
Oh, I thought it was Hazard. But okay. Paintsville, Kentucky for an angle that got shot from about 10 blocks away. Off into the distance, two people who we assume were the Rock and Roll Express were standing in a wrestling ring, and two large men with long hair hit the ring, and Bob Caudle, whose eyesight's better than mine, knew who was Ron and Don Harris, the Bruise Brothers.
You think you knew which one was which?
I don't think Ron or Don know which one is which.
I've watched them for 25 years. I don't know which one is which.
I couldn't even tell you which one's the Nazi, and we talked about that a few weeks ago. I think it's Ron.
Ron? I think it's Ron.
One of them's a Nazi.
If we're wrong and Don is the Nazi, we apologize to Ron Harris.
Yes. We don't mean to besmirch you, Ron, if you're not the Nazi. If you are the Nazi, then we're trying to besmirch you a lot.
I besmirch Nazis on principle.
Yes. Caudle said they're here to do the job for Jim Cornette. Like, what outlaw mud show shit is this? Corny brings in these two large motherfuckers who look like, they could kick everyone's ass and books him to beat them? What the fuck?
That's Vince Russo level mania. He's going to put the title on himself next.
Bro, it's fake, bro. Anyway, Ron and/or Don beat up Ricky and/or Robert. Eventually, White Lightning tried to help, and he got his ass kicked, making the Harrises babyface for a second, and eventually they left victoriously.
Oh, that was the best part of Tim Horner trying to make the save and immediately just getting knocked the fuck out. I enjoyed that.
White Lightning.
Felt bad for poor Mark Curtis, though.
Do you ever feel bad for White Lightning?
Never.
I guess you weren't here because it was the week before the Mr. Orndorff promo. Paul Orndorff brought a child out to ask the kid who his favorite wrestler was. And the kid's like, White Lightning.
That must have been Horner's fucking nephew or something.
I will say that kid cut a better promo than Horner ever has.
Do you think they'll ever let Horner talk on Mid-South?
Oh, Lord. I hope he does, just so Watts beats the fuck out of him.
No, if I feel like a Horner promo on TV would be just the worst thing Grizzly Smith could possibly do.
Indeed. Eventually, the faraway video camera comes into the building and goes backstage somehow, where it's allowed to interview Ricky Morton. Let's go to that promo where Robert Gibson is also there.
God, man, look at these stitches, bro. So, man, first of all, I'd like to say I'm glad one of the fans had a camera right here so I can do an interview right after this match right here. But man, we have been world champions, Robert, 4 different times, brother, and we have wrestled many tag teams, but I've never seen a tag team like this in my life since the Road Warriors hit back in the 80s. But let me tell you one thing, Cornette. You might have slicked this once, shame on you, but if you slick this again, it's shame on you, buddy, because all you want to do is be after these belts right here. But let me tell you something. Your mystery team might be big and bad, and you might get our backs against the wall, but next time, brother, we're coming out fighting. We don't care what it takes anymore, Cornette, because now we know what you're made out of. Look at my head, Cornette. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. So bring your mystery team on back to the matches, because I told you many times before that rock and roll is here to stay. We're not here to play.
That was a terrific, fired up white meat babyface promo by a bloodied Ricky Morton. And the first thing, of course, you notice, if in case you're not watching this, is they're using a non-broadcast quality camera, but somehow that makes it look better, if you were to ask me. Like, they probably just used the camcorder that, they used to tape the matches. But yeah, I love this promo. I loved every bit of it. And I noted that Robert Gibson was so angry, he was staring down the camera and the dressing room door.
He's some kind of neurodivergent, I think.
Do you think, or maybe those promos on Raw that MXM, I think it was MXM who mocked it on Collision by standing with their backs to the TV and watching it.
Yeah.
But do you think like that the first promo ever done like that was by Robert Gibson? He was doing it because that's how he sees the TV, and it's like, goddamn, pal, that's good shit.
Oh, poor who.
I'm sorry, Robert Gibson. We don't mean to make fun of your eye.
Nah,
that's a lie.
Yeah, Ricky's a good promo when he's fired up.
Let me write that down. Ricky Morton, good at promos.
I don't know. I don't think a lot of his just run-of-the-mill promos, but when he's mad and passionate, he's he gets his message across.
Especially when there's blood dripping down the poor bastard's face.
That helps a lot.
Yes. All right. So let's go to Down and Dirty with Dutch with his guest Tammy Fitch, Robbie Eagle, and yes, Tim Horner.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Down and Dirty with Dutch. I'm Dutch Mantell, and you're not. Now, a special edition of Down and Dirty with Dutch. You see, standing right here with me, Tammy Fitch, Robbie Eagle, and Tim Horner. Now, let me set this up here. Last week, Tammy Fitch came out here, Smoky Mountain Television, and she told Robbie Eagle right here, she said, Robbie, if you get me in contact with some wrestlers who want to talk serious contract, then I'll go out with you. Did you say that, Miss Fitch?
That's right, I said that.
Okay, she said that, and Robbie Eagle, I see you're here, and standing right here, White Lightning Tim Horner, and he looks like he may have serious contract negotiations on his mind. Now, Robbie Eagle, I'm going to tell you, could be a big day in your life if he wants to talk serious contract.
Yeah. Hey, Tim, you got to do this for me, please. I mean, look at her. It's the chance of a lifetime. Please do this for me, right? Please.
Well, Mr. Horner, what do you have to say?
Well, I did come out here to talk serious, but I want to talk to you, Robbie. Come on, man. You don't need a date with this girl. My dad told me a long time ago growing up, if you lay down with the dogs, you're going to wake up with fleas. You're about to get bit, pal.
Wait a minute. I can't. Tim Horner is leaving the ring. Robbie, what happened here? I thought you were going to bring a wrestler out here to talk. Well, obviously the deal is falling through. But now, wait just a minute. I must ask you, Miss Fitch, are you going to honor your commitment and go out with Robbie Eagle? He did bring a wrestler into this ring. Are you still going to go out with him?
Are you kidding? I'd rather go out with one of these filthy, dirty Kentucky people.
You're not going to go out with him?
No. And Robbie, you call me when you're somebody.
Whoa. Hey, don't look at me. I ain't going out with you either. Okay, fans, that's it. Don't go away. We'll be right back in
Oh, I just marked out for that one. Don't look at me. I'm not going out with you either.
You think in 2000, when they were in WCW and Robbie Eagle was the maestro, you think he was like, "How you like me now, bitch?"
No offense to Chris Candido, but I think it'd be easier to count the people in the locker room that Tammy didn't sleep with.
That's I don't even have a joke for that.
So not the worst Tim Horner promo in the world. I mean, it does follow the Tim Horner rule. You give him 15 seconds. It's typically not horrible, and that was not horrible. Yeah. we'll see if anything more comes of this, because otherwise this just seems like it was a weird angle to begin with, but then it's like, is this really the payoff to Tammy and Robbie Eagle?
Horner works better doing dialogue than monologue, and I don't know if that's just because there's also somebody else talking, or if it's just he works better in short spurts. But I'd rather him have conversations than promos.
Can you imagine if he was on Raw in the year 2000 when every episode started with a 20-minute promo?
I never been so horrified by a thought in my life. And then I had the thought of Triple H wrestling Tim Horner.
I bet that would have been good.
I don't even know whose side I would be on in that scenario.
I would hope that like the building would explode or something. I think that would be an appropriate, response in that match.
Maybe it would get struck by white lightning.
White lightning.
So they didn't explain who Tammy Fitch was this week, and why is she here? I can't remember which woman on the show is the one that filed the sexual discrimination lawsuit. What the fuck is going on? You got to explain this to me every week, or I don't know who she is.
Wait, she's the person that filed a sexual discrimination suit against Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
Well, it was one of the women on the show. It was either her or Pam or the cute girl from the merch commercials or possibly Steve and Scott's mom.
Maybe what's his name? Trent's mom, Sue. Maybe
What if it was Mama Cornette? Wouldn't that be the plot twist to all plot twists?
It would be. If all the people that filed the discrimination suit against Smoky Mountain, it would be Jim's mama.
Well, she is the equivalent of like a team owner, I guess, technically.
Oh God!
What do you think, Mama Cornette? What do you think Mama Cornette thought of Jimmy Del Rey?
She probably was like, Jimmy, is this where my money's going to bring in this guy?
Now I'm just thinking of all of the lewd and lascivious things Jimmy Del Rey spent Mama Cornette's money on.
Well, they had to fly women in because these women in Kentucky, ew.
Here's what I was a little confused by, and this was referring back to the promo earlier. I was a little bit confused when Dr. Tom said that Steve and Scott would get more done if they told their girlfriends to stop calling the heavenly bodies.
Because they would have more sex?
I get a lot less done when I'm having a lot of sex.
I don't know. I thought you were going to ask, why does it look like Tracy Smothers just had a 45-minute match before coming out for his promo?
Because it's fucking hot in here.
And didn't he? Well, I guess he didn't wrestle last week. He interfered in a match last week. I'm sure at some point in the last 3 weeks, Tracy Smothers has had a match on TV, and he's still sweating from that, I'm sure. Or he took a shower and then got told, oh, yeah, you got another promo you got to go out for. Anyway,
I don't know.
Let's go to this Tracy Smothers promo. And we've been promised that 2 men are going to go after Tracy Smothers to try to get that bounty, which makes me wonder why Tracy even bothered to show up on TV this week. But let's go to that now.
All right, fans, with me right now, the wild-eyed Southern boy, Tracy Smothers. I see he's still all in one piece. Nobody's collected that bounty yet, but I got to tell you, Ron Wright and the Dirty White Boy are awfully happy. They say they're going to pay it. Somebody's going to collect it today.
$20,000 bounty.
$20,000 bounty. That's
Man,
right.
I'll tell you what, that's a lot of money. I've been in this sport a while now, and I've been through a lot of things, but never, ever have I ever had anybody put a $20,000 bounty on me. I saw what happened to Brian Lee when they had just a $10,000 bounty, so I could just imagine. But you know something? There are top stars calling all over the world to come into Smoky Mountain Wrestling to collect that bounty. It's like a virtual who's who in professional wrestling. Right. Man, they're all wanting a shot at it. I walked out of this to come on this interview here, and I was awful paranoid looking over my shoulder. And I look around, man, I walk out of my house, and I'm nervous as heck.
Wait a minute.
Smothers down there, sir. I've got these men up here in the ring, and they're going to collect that bounty for me. Now let's see where your guts is at and how big or yellow belly streak you got down your back, and be man enough to come on down here and get in the ring. The bounty is being collected now, brother.
So evidently you're going to go.
I'm fixing to get something straight right here, right now, Mr. Cottle.
All right, fans, there goes Tracy Smothers. He's heading to the ring. Dutch, anything can happen here.
Well, Ron Wright says that he put the $20,000 bounty out, and now he's called him down to the ring. Now, I don't think... wait a minute.
I don't have anything personal against you two boys at all, man. I know $20,000 is a lot of money, but money makes you do a lot of crazy things. Why don't we just forget about this whole thing, man? Because, I mean, money's the root of all evil, guys. All right? Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you this, and I feel this in my heart. Hey, look at me, boys. I think you're overmatched. The best thing to do is to go back to the dressing room, okay?
Well, we see
Ron Wright has brought him, and that was a bad mistake on the part of Tracy Smothers. He's attacked from behind.
Well, he's brought Paul Lee and Mike Sampson in the ring. They're double teaming. Uh-oh, it backfired on him. There's a shot by Smothers. Now he hits
Lee
Sampson.
goes down. He hits Sampson back into the corner. He's got them both. He's going to slam them together.
Double head jam right together. Now, the $20,000 is out. Two men on one. There's a flying elbow and the drop kick.
I tell you, the $20,000 may have colored these guys' eyes a little bit too much. I don't know that these two are capable of handling Tracy Smothers.
Well, I'm going to see Tracy Smothers has nothing to win with this.
Lee into the corner. Wait a minute, from behind. There's the Dirty White Boy.
He's got a visitor. Dirty White Boy putting him on his head. Obviously thinking back to last week when he was...
Wait a minute. Heck, he's got a plastic bag that he took out of his tie. He's putting it over the head. He's trying to choke him. He's trying to smother him. Let me tell you, hey, all you youngsters at home, don't ever do anything. This is very dangerous.
This is very dangerous.
Don't do anything like this.
It only takes...
Extremely dangerous.
Look at that. See, he's trying to breathe, but there's no oxygen in there. It's all gone right now. And it won't take long before he's out. Somebody's got to come to the rescue. This guy can go right out. He can kill him like this. He could die, Doug. Wait a minute, we get some help. Here comes the rock and roll. Here comes Horner. Here comes the rock and roll. They get that bag off, and Smothers is gasping for breath in the ring. And they got there just in the nick of time. Fans, we'll be back right after this.
That goddamn Jim Cornette stealing AEW's main event angle to use on his own local TV show.
If I had a nickel for every wrestling show that I've watched in the last week where one man tried to murder one another by asphyxiating him with a plastic bag, I'd have 2 nickels. And that's not a lot, but it's strange that it happened twice in a week.
Indeed it is. So yeah, Paul Lee and Mike Sampson, shockingly, with their combined record of 0-1,000,000, did not take the bounty here.
So was Tracy being a dick, or was he being nice by warning them that they were overmatched? Because they totally were overmatched.
I think he was being nice.
That Tracy Smothers, such a stand-up guy.
Yes. By the way, I do want to know, I did look up, Triple H has never had a match against Tim Horner.
What a shame.
See, I figured, he's in WCW, and I don't know what the hell Horner does after he leaves here, but, like the idea of Horner going back as a jobber to WCW wasn't out of this world. So
I have casually wondered that and not cared enough to actually look it up.
Yes.
I'm gonna look it up now, see what Tim Horner did after Smoky Mountain.
This, by the way, is more important than the main event angle where White Boy tries to murder Poor Tracy Smothers by wrapping a garbage bag around his head. And I
Oh,
do. Mhm.
Tim Horner's gonna have a New Japan tour next year. Oh my God. Tim Horner is gonna have singles matches with Shinya Hashimoto, Manabu Nakanishi, Osamu Kido, Black Cat, Satoshi Kojima, and Tatsumi Fujinami.
Tim Horner's in the G1.
No, no, it's the November December tour, but he loses to Fujinami in 4 minutes.
Interesting.
And yes,
so
he does appear in WCW in 1995 doing jobs.
By the way, I would like to formally apologize to Mike Sampson and Paul Lee, because I said they had a combined record of 0-1,000,000 here in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. They actually had a combined record of 3-65.
Well, Paul Lee was the #1 contender for the TV title just about 20 minutes ago.
And Paul Lee was 0-30 in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So yes, that would imply, as you know, Mike Sampson wins 3 matches in his Smoky Mountain career, and technically, well, I'd say we've seen 2 of them, but the first 2 were house shows. He beat the Demon, who doesn't have a cage match, so I'm assuming it's not Dale Torborg, and Pat Rose.
Oh.
But that would tell you that
doing here?
Yeah, that he does have 1 more win to go, and I don't want to spoil things for you, but that 1 win happens on TV. But I will also say though, his last TV match is in March of 1995, so he's here quite a while. So
well, see now we'll always have that mystery, and every time Mike Sampson's on the show, I'll wonder, is this the one?
Is this the one in 3-35?
That math isn't mathing.
Nah, it's not. So let's go down to Bullet Bob Armstrong, who's starting to feel better, and he's outside.
You know, Cornette, this funny-looking contraption over me is called a pull-up ball. I don't guess you know anything about that. But every day now, I've done a couple more pull-ups. It's getting a little easier. Like I said, I'm stretching further past the pain. The ribs still stretch, and they still hurt. But ain't nothing worth something if it don't hurt a little bit. But I hurt a lot. And now I've heard a lot about what's happening up there. You running around with all your antics outside the ring. Well, I've heard enough. The general is on his way. Armstrong's Army general is coming, brother, and I took my lessons from Patton himself. You're going to think this lion on my shirt is right because I'm going to be the lion of Smoky Mountain, and you are going to be Bambi, and I am going to chew you up and spit you out in pieces.
It took me longer than it probably should have to realize he said lion and not line on his shirt. Which, although I will say, I must have missed that scene in Bambi where the lion killed Bambi.
I think Bullet Bob is gonna whoop Jim Cornette's ass.
I think Jim Cornette has a beating coming, one that his mama should have given him a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if Mama Cornette was a believer in corporal punishment, but Jimmy needs to be put over someone's knee right now.
She probably started believing after he brought Jimmy Del Rey to Castle Cornette.
Oh Lord, there are some tremendous promos coming up in Castle Cornette, by the way.
Real SMW promos?
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, main event time. Unless you have more to say about Bullet Bob, which
no.
All right, main event time. It is the Heavenly Bodies with Jim Cornette versus Scott and Steve Armstrong. there's actually time for a 10-minute main event. And they don't go 10 minutes, they go closer to about 8. But still, 8 minutes in a 48-minute show is 1/6 of the show.
They went
It's
9:30.
9 minutes and 30 seconds in a 48-minute show is still a lot of show.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird, and I've noted this already, but it's like I just got to keep bringing it up every time. It's so weird that Scott Armstrong is essentially a brand new wrestler when we've seen Dixie Dynamite since episode number 1. But
you don't even think about it though. Like,
yeah. And honestly, that's for the better, because Dixie Dynamite was at best an opening match 50-50 wrestler, and Scott Armstrong is in a top spot.
Yeah, this is better.
Yeah. Dutch said he's worried that Bullet Bob wouldn't be able to keep up with the Young Bucks. I mean, I know I have issues with the brothers Jackson, but I'd like to think they'd have enough respect for the man to have his type of match and bump like a crazy person for the Bullet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the one thing I did note, this series of matches here with the Heavenly Bodies and the Armstrong brothers shows you the genius of Jim Cornette as a booker. For all intents and purposes, these are two completely brand new teams who have zero Smoky Mountain wrestling history. However, the Heavenly Bodies name is a Smoky Mountain institution and a top act. And we know that Scott was Dixie Dynamite, and most importantly, that they're Bullet Bob's kids. So you took two essentially brand new teams and inserted them into the hottest angle in the company, and nobody is raising an eyebrow at it.
Yeah, it's like you said, the Bodies are kind of an established property, even though it's a different team. The name Armstrong is one of the most famous names in the history of East Tennessee wrestling. And this is immediately one of the top feuds in the territory.
Yeah. Speaking of Scott, that's who they get the heat on. Finally, he blocks the suplex, hits one of his own, dodges an elbow drop, and makes the hot tag. Steve runs wild, and they were going so fast when the Heavenly Bodies were feeding in for Steve Armstrong. I thought I was watching the match on fucking fast forward. Jimmy and Tom were bumping and jumping up as fast as possible so Steve could punch them down just as fast. A four-way breaks out, and when Mark Curtis was busy getting Scott out of the ring, Del Rey lifted Steve up so Corny could wallop him with the racket and get the pin. Now, Trae, you said that this is a 3-star match. I vehemently disagree, and I'm going to fight you on this. This was easily 3.25 stars.
Well, maybe I here's the thing. This may have been what cut off a 1/4 star for me. In the midst of Steve's comeback, he got thrown over the top rope and then dived off the top rope in the span of about 30 seconds, and I just got so fucking anxious. So maybe that's what
to be fair, the dive off the top rope is not a disqualification at Smoky Mountain. The throw over the top rope is, but the referee's back was turned.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
That's good,
So,
I guess. Fucking Mark Curtis. It was Mark Curtis, right? Was Mark Curtis the referee?
Yeah. I don't think he was wearing his glasses, so there's a chance that if he would have seen it, he wouldn't have seen it.
He's been his refereeing's been a little iffy lately.
Before anyone complains, no, Kurt Angle never had a 3-star match on Smoky Mountain Wrestling before. I don't know why that is. Neither did Randy Orton or Hulk Hogan's ever had a 3-star match on Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Randy Savage does, but that's not for another year or so. But yeah, I'm sorry, Kurt Angle and Randy Orton and John Cena, they never had 3-star matches on Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
What Jimmy Del Rey did.
Yes. Jimmy Del Rey had more 3-star matches on this show than Lou Thesz and Jack Briscoe and Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes.
If only Ric Flair hadn't gone to the WWF and he'd taken Rick Rubin's offer of 10 grand a shot to be the Smoky Mountain champion, he could have definitely had some 3-star matches on this here program.
Yeah. By the way, send any hate mail to Twitter at Orgatre.
Yeah, I don't check it.
Really, he doesn't. So all 2 babyface tag teams in the territory have gotten together for a combo promo to end the show.
All right, fans, with us right now, 2 teams that have really felt the wrath of teams from Jim Cornette. Of course, the Armstrongs and Rock and Roll. Rick?
You see, Bob, we both get our troubles with Jimmy Cornette. The Armstrongs with the Heavenly Bodies, and the Rock and Roll Express with these 2 goons that Jimmy Cornette brought in against us. But you remember one thing, Jimmy Cornette, and you remember it well. You see, when we come marching here at Smoky Mountain Wrestling, it's not going to be too long until the Bullet Barb Armstrong will be leading the pack, baby, and he'll be coming after you, Cornette. All right.
Okay.
That's right. You set him up, Jimmy Cornette. Everybody just saw it took 3 of you, 1 of you with a tennis racket, you yellow-bellied fat son of a piece of crap. Let me tell you something, but it won't be long. Set them all up. Kevin Sullivan, Dr. Tom Pritchard, Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey, or whatever the hell his name is. Set them up, and we're going to knock them down, brother, because it only takes 3 on any given night.
That's exactly right. Pritchard, you gone and got your cousin, brother. Well, I got my brother, I got my father, I got brothers all over the United States, pal. We got brothers right here, but the bottom line is, when it comes down to it, the Armstrongs gonna make the Hatfields and McCoys look like a Chinese checker match, boy.
When the Bullet and his boys get together, all they do is create stormy weather.
Yeah. All right, fans, that'll do it for this week.
Ricky and Robert were suffering from Tracy Smothers' disease, where despite not wrestling on the show, they were soaking fucking wet. That run-in on the Dirty White Boy angle, that exerted a lot of energy, I thought. So, Trae, you fat son of a piece of crap, what do you have to say about this?
You know, I was going to start saying it about 10 seconds before you started calling me a fat piece of crap, and I realized I was muted. So,
I called you a fat son of a piece of crap.
Well, that's just rude. You can call me a piece of crap. Leave my parentage out of it.
I'm sorry to Mr.
Anyway.
and Mrs. Weiscarver.
Yeah, this was it's very probable that there was no air conditioning in this high school gym in Harlan, Kentucky in May. Probably really fucking humid. So maybe that's why everybody was sweating. But yeah, decent promo. They're the Bullet's coming. The Bullet is coming.
You got your cousin, brother. Well, I got my brother, cousin. Sadly, that's not exactly what he said. Nah.
Think Ricky and Robert are cousin brothers?
I think we need to start keeping a running count of how many promos we can have with the Rock and Roll Express where Robert doesn't say anything.
Robert's parents were never mind. That's impolite.
I mean, his mom was a deaf mute, so I mean that's not a lie to say that. It's just mean to point it out.
Weren't both of his parents deaf?
I don't think so. I think it was just his mom.
Oh, well.
Could be wrong, but you
know. Yeah. Well. Apologies to Mr. and Mrs. Gibson.
Yes. Poor Robert Gibson's mama.
His brother invented the Gibson leg lock, though. That's pretty cool.
Oh, wow, really?
I think so. I assume.
Okay.
Just always assumed that Ricky Gibson invented that move.
And maybe Robert Gibson invented it. Who knows?
Always was mildly amused by the fact that twice in his life, Robert was the number 2 to a Ricky.
I always loved that Robert Gibson found a partner named Ricky. So, yeah.
Probably took him a long time to seek that out.
Mm-hmm. By the way, talk for about 30 seconds.
Talk for about 30 seconds. What on earth am I going to talk about for 30 seconds? Okay, so I'm still not caught up on my my watching. See, this was June 12th. I'm on about June 3rd, 1993. I did finally finish May. Now today I didn't get all the way through it. I'm going to finish after the show. But I started an All Japan Women's DVD from show that was June 3rd, 1993. And the first two matches were fucking awesome. They were the first match on the DVD was Akira Hokuto and Kyoko Inoue against Aja Kong and Bull Nakano. That was a badass match. Aja Kong and Bull Nakano were fucking monsters. Hokuto and Inoue are bad bitches in their own right. Other match was Manami Toyota against Hikari Fukuoka. Really just fucking tremendous wrestling matches. Like, I kind of really didn't know that Manami Toyota was that much of a technician, but she was so fucking great. This match ruled and built like really well into dives and crazy shit. And yeah, the main event is let's see, it's Dynamite Kansai and Mayumi Ozaki defending the WWA World Tag Team Championship in a 2 out of 3 falls match against Takako Inoue and Yumiko Hata. So that's going to be the rest of my evening.
So remember either earlier this week or last week, we were talking about the Midnight Express in Dallas.
Yeah.
And I thought it was not very long and you disagreed. Well, you win. According to a combination of Cage Match and the history of WWE.com, the Midnight Express are in Dallas from December 3rd, 1984 until June 21st, 1985. And they start on TBS in Mid-Atlantic on June 29th. I legitimately thought they were there at the beginning of the end of the Crockett on TBS era. But no,
I have listened to it because Cornette has done deep dives on various time periods in his career, and the whole Midnight Express period has been very well covered. So I feel like I have a pretty good working history of the entire run of the Midnight Express.
Well, and I have the Midnight Express 25th anniversary scrapbook on my bookshelf that I'm looking right at. I didn't even have to look up Cage Match, and I still looked this up instead.
I have that too. That was that's how I found out that my hometown was a Mid-South spot show town. Which made sense.
What town was that?
Crossett, Arkansas. It's a small town in kind of southeastern corner of Arkansas, about 10 minutes from the Louisiana state line, about an hour from the Mississippi River.
I'd like to point out, and obviously you are not what people think of typically when they think of a stereotypical person from Arkansas. I'd like to point out that my transgender, liberal, northern, honky ass does a twice weekly podcast with somebody who was raised in Arkansas.
And I, who's my default speaking voice, if I don't code switch, sounds like a hate crime. I do like 3 or 4 hours of wrestling tweets, a wrestling podcast a week with a Yankee trans woman.
There's something wrong with both of us, I think. It's fine.
It's just we had to find each other because very few people can just banter about dumb wrestling shit on this level.
And to think I was really looking for someone to do the TNA show with, and you just happened. You replied second.
I think it worked out. I think it worked out much better this way.
And I was like, well, I do other shows. Do you have any interest in? So I'm like, I can't ask you to do 2 shows. So I'm like, I think I asked you to do Smoky Mountain first. I'm like, you interested in doing Smoky Mountain? He's like, I guess. I'm like, well, I mean, while you're at it, if you like, I also do a show about Mid South and World Class, and it's like I can try it, I guess. And then
Yeah, we gave it a 1 week trial about 17 weeks ago, so a successful trial.
I think it's worked out. I think you passed the tryout. Like the one thing is that first show, or even like the first two shows, is like it was very stiff. I was like, okay, we gotta learn how to get our feet on this one. And then 1 week you showed up high, and the rest was history.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really understand the scope of the podcast for the first couple of weeks, and I was trying to not be too much of a dipshit. And then the third week is when I realized that just being as big a dipshit as possible was the appeal of the podcast.
I was encouraging it. Because you were like, oh man, I you didn't say it quite this way, but you were kind of like, man, I hope I didn't make you mad here. So I'm like, no, I'm encouraging this. I'm like, if drug use is what makes this show fun, drug use it is.
Big fan of
go drugs.
Drug use while podcasting. Yeah, yay drugs. I'm on the side of the drugs and the war on drugs.
This might be the first. I mean, I don't know if it's the first. This might be the first show ever to do a pro drug talk.
Surely somebody somewhere on a wrestling podcast has talked favorably about drugs in some context.
I'm sure Van Dam's done a podcast.
Oh, he I think he does a regular podcast like every wrestler from the 90s does these days.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if he somehow did this weekly podcast and never talked about drugs?
I've watched some clips on YouTube, and he is just flat out smoking fat joints while recording the podcast.
But that doesn't mean he's talking about it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. The kids, I don't think the young folks, because we're very big in the 16 to 24 demographic. I don't think
the male demos are up on the show.
Yeah, I don't think the kids understand just how fucking cool Rob Van Dam was to us in 1999.
Yes, and it wasn't just he was a pothead thing. Like, he did a lot of cool moves in an era where not everybody did a lot of cool moves.
He did. If you want to kind of start piecing together the links of what wrestling became in the 2000s, you got to watch like RVD and Jerry Lynn from 1999.
Yeah. And then from there, watch like those original first couple years of Ring of Honor, all the good X Division stuff in TNA, and that in many ways led to what we have today.
On the topic of great wrestlers who I don't think get as much credit as they deserve for their influence on what wrestling became, fucking Jerry Lynn is fantastic.
Oh yeah. And so we talk about how great Van Dam was. Van Dam was very athletic. Van Dam did a lot of great moves, but Van Dam did not have a lot of great matches until he met Jerry Lynn. And Jerry Lynn, in some ways, was a miracle worker because, I don't want to say he solved the mystery of Rob Van Dam, because that would be wrong to say Van Dam never had good matches, but he had more misses than hits. If you watch his old matches of his. But Jerry Lynn discovered the secret to having a with Van Dam, and they had a lot of great matches.
And as you have become intimately familiar with on your TNA show, Jerry Lynn was like the first veteran that AJ Styles had an extended program with. Yep. And there's just little things that every now and then I'll see AJ doing something and I'll go, oh yeah, there's that Jerry Lynn.
And it's actually funny because like we're 11 weeks in or 11 pay-per-views in, and the AJ Styles on week 1 and the AJ Styles on week 11 are two very different AJ Styleses. Like, I'm not saying he's not still a little green, he's not still learning, but working a program with Jerry Lynn for 3 months, shockingly, has made AJ Styles a better wrestler.
It set him on the road to becoming a more complete wrestler.
Yes, indeed it does. And it's like, I was about to say he was the first TNA created wrestler to become a world champion, but in reality, Ron the Truth Killings was, even though he was K-Quick first in the WWF, but like no one, like you're not going to count that. Let's just say
AJ Styles was in WCW for 5 minutes right at the end.
And if I'm not going to count K-Quick, I'm not going to count AJ Styles. I'm not going to count Air Styles teaming with Air Paris, who is still alive, despite what somebody once argued with him on Twitter about.
Argued with him that he wasn't alive?
Yes. Because somebody asked Lance Storm about him, and Lance, I forget what Lance said, but the real Air Paris chimed in, and the guy said, "Oh, Air Paris died," and the guy and Air Paris is like, "Oh, I did," and the guy's like, "Yeah, he died in like 2004 or something." So,
why did they think he had died?
Well, when you're not wrestling on national television, you automatically have died.
Why did he never get like a shot? Like, why wasn't he in TNA? Why wasn't he in early Ring of Honor? Why wasn't he somewhere? Did he stop wrestling fairly early?
I feel like he had to have been, something. I mean, it's possible he just didn't want to move. And I mean, when you're in Georgia, like there's not like Ring of Honor is based out of Philadelphia. TNA, I guess he could have done TNA because TNA was in Nashville, but let me see here what we can find. According to Cage Match, well, he didn't wrestle much, but he was still wrestling into 2021. But yeah, he mostly did NWA Wildside and not a whole lot of reported matches anyway. But yeah, he, from what I could tell, and again, Cage Match may not have everything, but he never does TNA. He never does Ring of Honor. Outside of that weird WCW run, it is, pretty much 90% NWA Wildside.
What a shame. They were, that was fun.
Yeah. He apparently wrestled a match on Worldwide, teaming with Alan Funk, who is the Kiwi, and someone named Shane Eden to lose a 3-on-2 handicap match to Chronic. Shane Eden, by the way, was trained by Kubla Khan. Remember the fuck that is.
Kubla Khan, the fucking. Yes. Also, they Air Paris, James Storm, Corey Williams, and future former NWA World Heavyweight Champion Mike Rapata lost a 4-on-2 handicap match to Chronic.
Apparently, if you want someone to lose a handicap match to Chronic, you call Air Paris.
Probably fucking call Air Paris today to do a job for Brian Clark.
I was going to say, what's Brian Clark doing these days?
He's the one that's alive, right? I feel like we've had this conversation before.
I don't know if we have or haven't, but Brian Adams is definitely dead.
I can never remember which one of them is alive. I'm sorry.
But by the way, Brian Clark allegedly hasn't wrestled since 2003 when Chronic lost to the Great Muta and Bill Goldberg on an All Japan show.
At that the Tokyo Dome. It was a Tokyo Dome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was that weird, like, it's not technically an All Japan show, but it kind of is. Like, it was Muto / the head of Dream Stage Entertainment, which they owned Pride, and later were behind the comedy promotion Hustle. Yeah, so those are like, they're recorded as All Japan shows, but they technically weren't, but they totally were.
I had to look up to see because Chronic was somehow the All Japan double tag team champions. They defeated Keiji Muto and Taiokia to win the belts, and I'm like, I don't see them losing the belts. So I look up and nope, the titles were vacated because Chronic could not do a job to lose the All Japan tag team titles.
Yeah, I think the quote unquote official reason was when Bryan Adams quit pro wrestling to become a professional boxer.
But by the way, the day before the famous Undertaker Kane versus Chronic match, they had a house show in Reading, Pennsylvania, with Kane and Prince Albert defeating Chronic. I bet that was so much fucking worse.
The disrespect to Giant Bernard.
Hey, you know, I don't think I saw any of his Japanese run, because yeah, by the time I got into New Japan, he was already back in WWE as Tensai. But you know, say what you want about that New Japan run, he sucked in you know, WWE.
Remember that random match where like he wrestled Kane and did a fucking Frankensteiner?
Do you remember how he beat Kane for the Intercontinental Championship?
In Madison Square Garden.
Was it in Madison Square Garden?
It was in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, Lord. I don't know why I'm now looking up the career of Brian Clark on Cage Match. But, like, I remember, like, he was Adam Bomb, obviously. And then a couple of years later, he shows up in WCW as Wrath, a part of the Blood Runs Cold feud. And I'm like, what did he do in between, you know, WWF in 95 and WCW in 97? And the answer is almost nothing. He wrestled 6 matches, including an almost 20-minute match with Shane Douglas, which I bet must be seen to be believed. A match with the Warlord, which must be seen to be believed. And a 3-show UK tour where he teamed with, well, he could not keep a partner. Well, I'm sorry, he had 2 different partners in 3 shows. He teamed with someone named JCB to defeat Dave McMillian and Tony McMillian. He then teamed with Andre Baker to lose to Doug Williams and Titan, who was probably not Titan. And then on the 3rd show, they beat Doug Williams and Titan.
So I was just reading about Bryan Adams' boxing career. He had success as an amateur boxer in the United States Air Force. He was scheduled to have his first pro boxing match against Rick Zufall on November 16th, 2002 at the Mandalay Bay Resort Casino in Las Vegas with professional wrestler Randy Savage in his corner. This bout was to air on the Never Surrender boxing pay-per-view, but while training, Adams sustained a shoulder injury, which forced him to pull out of the bout.
By the way, now that we're 72 down, 128 to go, I should probably tell you what else happened in the world of wrestling, because we managed to just go off on a tangent for the last 30 minutes. But,
sure.
What else happened in the world of wrestling June 12th, 1993? The big news, Bret Hart won King of the Ring. Now,
he did.
That wasn't really the story. Well, that was the story on TV. The story behind the camera were the nonstop shenanigans going on between Bret and Hogan, where Bret was supposed to get a SummerSlam title match with Hogan, where Hogan would do the JOB, and Hogan allegedly refuses. But even when Bret tells the story in the book, Hogan dragged Bret to Vince's office to settle it. And, well, you know, needless to say, Hogan never did the job for Bret. And instead, Bret's prize was to start a 2-year feud with Jerry Lawler. And this was when Lawler attacked him after winning the King of the Ring and injured him by throwing the throne on him. Bret Hart would get his revenge. ...
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to interrupt for just a second for some nonsense. So today I had I had a medical appointment, and originally my appointment was for 1:50 in the afternoon, and they called me at about noon. It was like, yeah, the doctor is on call, and I heard later he had to do like an emergency surgery or whatever. So they rescheduled me for like 3:10, and then he was like an hour late on top of that. So I was just in the waiting room of this doctor's office for like an hour and a half, and so I have been slowly chipping away at the 1993 Wrestling Observer Yearbook. So I spent a significant amount of time today. I read about first I read about the formation of Pancras, and then I read the whole story of the saga of what was Hulk Hogan doing in 1993. And you just made me think of that because I'm sure you were going to get to the fact that King of the Ring was Hulk Hogan's last televised WWF match until 2002.
Well, now that Trae has stolen the final line of my next statement, let me tell you the first line of the next statement. Hogan, instead of dropping the belt to Hart, dropped the belt to Yokozuna after Harvey Whippleman dressed like a Japanese photographer and shot a fireball at Hogan. As mentioned by Trae, this was Hogan's last WWF TV match until March of 2002. Happy?
You know, I actually like. I think I probably saw it before and just forgot about it, but I did not really realize until today. I thought that was his last WWF appearance, period. But no, he did like a whole fucking. He worked a bunch of house shows that year, teaming with Beefcake Against Money Inc. But then, like as late as August, he did a fucking European tour where he beat Yokozuna by DQ every night.
Yeah, it is one of like those giant misnomers that Hogan never wrestled again after King of the Ring. They stopped mentioning him. So it's kind of weird that he would do like that European tour or those house shows, because it's like he was never on TV again, not even doing promos. Like that was like the weird part about all this. And then the other thing, it's all WWF this week. At the TV taping the next night, the Steiner brothers defeated Money Incorporated to win the WWF Tag Team titles. Just wait until next week. That's all I'm going to say.
I won't spoil it.
Yes, we don't want to spoil our 31-year-old wrestling here. No. So I think, we've got about 90 minutes, maybe a little bit more than 90 minutes. I think it's about time to tie a bow on this and call it a day.
Yeah, we've talked for almost as long as I sat in the doctor's office today.
There you go. We could have been doing the podcast while you were in the waiting room, which would have been difficult because I was at work and hadn't even watched the show yet. But, we still could have done it.
Yeah, I was reading, and then eventually the room filled up with old people because like it's a urologist office, so I was the youngest person there by 20 years. And eventually, as old people are wont to do, they started talking, and then it was a very small room, and many people were talking. There was like 3 different conversations happening at once, and I couldn't read my fucking book. So I don't think we could have pulled off the podcast.
That would have been a very interesting little podcast there, I think. But anywho,
we could have had some guests, some older Hispanic people.
Excuse me, ma'am. What do you know about wrestling? And he starts telling us about Lucha Libre.
Yeah,
that was unexpected. But anyway, that's going to do it for this week's show. Well, thank everyone for listening. Go to your urology appointments and hope your doctor's there. But until next week, we'll talk to you then.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
That was a weird outro.